What's it like to be back in Formula One?
Well, obviously it is a big thing. I've been 2 years out of the sport, and then I came back last year, and this year I think we are a little bit more competitive as well. I'm into the car a little bit more, into the team, and we have these very good races. Miami this year, Las Vegas next year. So I think the sport in general now is on a high, and we are taking benefits of that.
Yeah, I've heard that you're going to have 23 races, which is more than ever before.
Yeah, it's the longest calendar ever in history of the sport. So that also proves, how healthy is Formula One now, and I think the interest. There are a lot of, new sponsors and new races and teams that they want to come into the sport, and this is good for everybody.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about teamwork, right? Because this is a race where you've got a huge team, right? You've got driver, pit crew. Apparently, you've got more than 1,000 people that are sitting back there, in the factory, on your team.
Correct.
So how do you think about teamwork and managing such a large team?
Well, obviously, Formula One is quite extreme on that. We have 1,500 people for 2 cars, so it's not the most efficient thing in terms of a sport. But this is all about technology. This is all about perfection, to beat the competition. But the team effort, and the team spirit is crucial, in everything we do in life. And I think these 2 things, are a clear example of how
That's
it
right.
works.
In fact, I understand that you do an enormous amount of preparation before a race. On the simulator and then on the course. Tell us a little bit about how you get ready.
Well, as you said, there are a lot of preparation before a race. On the driving side, we have a lot of simulator time where we learn the circuit, and also we try different setups of the car. But also the engineers, they have to set up the car and to guess a little bit what is the optimal setup for that circuit, that temperature, that moment of the year, and the upgrades that we bring to the car. Every race we bring some new parts that the designers they develop, to improve the performance. So you need to anticipate what those parts will need in terms of balance of the cars and things like that. So there are a lot of preparation, but we have a very strong team, and Formula One is a huge organization in terms of that.
Yeah, and you must have to trust all of these people, to give you good advice, tell you what's going to happen in advance. The environment is changing all of the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think trust is the right word for sure. But we trust because we believe that we have the best people on each department of our team. So the tire group, they study the new asphalt, the type of asphalt that we have in that race, historically data on that tire, that compound, that level of downforce, that power that we will use exiting the corners. So there are a lot of simulations beforehand, before going to the Grand Prix, that they are very useful. So when you speak with the tire guy, you know that he knows much more than you do. You know how to drive the car, and they trust you when you are behind the wheel, right. But you trust them in terms of all these details, so it's a matter of trust.
You have to teach me something, I want to meet the tire guy, because sometimes when I need new tire, he'll know more than I do. We do exactly the same thing when it comes to investing. We get ready, we do all of the analysis, the environment, we think about what's going to happen in the future, policy.
For sure.
It's the same thing.
Each person in the bank is the best on his job, and you need to trust what he's doing.
Let's talk a little bit, though, about, when we think about what's happening in the world of racing, right? Apparently, technology is a big deal, right? There's a question about electric cars. There's also a question about, literally technology, artificial intelligence. You told me a little bit about a special tool that you have when you want to accelerate. Tell me a little bit about how technology has changed in the last few years.
It changed a lot. Obviously, I started in 2001, Formula One. So
then they had an ignition switch.
Yeah, imagine on 20 years, how much the world develops and Formula One and technology develops. So yeah, we have a lot of technology now in the car and a lot of data as well that we transmit and we transfer to the engineers while running, live data, so they can check every parameter of the car, how it's running, and they can tell us by radio, different instructions that on the steering wheel we can change different things. If the brakes are running too hot or the water of the car is running too hot or whatever, we can change these things live, and not only here on the Grand Prix, also in the factory. So all that data is coming live in England or in Paris for the engine or for anything. So it's a big thing, and I think technology is changing the world, and I'm sure for you as well.
So when we talk about a simulator, right, the way it used to be and the way it is now, you literally have the ability to do anything in the simulator you do on the course.
Yeah, simulators, they are a very important tool now. Obviously, the circuits are very, very precise. All the visuals, all the graphics are perfect. The teams, normally, they scan the circuit. So it's a perfect replica of the circuit. All the bumps, the curves, everything is exactly the same. And yeah, also for them, it is a very important tool, because for the team, they can develop, let's say, a front suspension, just a concept. We try the simulator. If it's negative, we don't make it into production. If it's positive, then we make it into production and we test on the real car. So it's a filter, the simulator of many maybe crazy ideas that you will never test in the car for real.
That's right. So the one thing that is incredibly variable in your life are the people who you race against, right? And you know them, some of them very well. Some of them are professionals like you. Some of them are young, starting out. How do you think about the people on the course?
As you said, there are always, it's probably the most unpredictable part of our racing. Everything is so precise and so controlled beforehand that then eventually it's just a human race, when the red light is off, and you never know what the other drivers will do or what maneuver they will attempt or something like that. So I think that's the beauty of the sport. In all the sports, you have that component that anything can happen. An NBA game or football game or whatever, you never know what is happening until the checkered flag.
Right, but the difference is that being older makes you wiser, right? You've seen more than they have seen, and so that experience has to be very helpful.
100%,
right.
100%, because obviously I experienced different type of races. I experienced different venues that maybe, we come to Australia maybe next year, and I race already there, and some of the drivers, they didn't in the past. Some wet races or damp races or different things that obviously more experience you have, better it is. Different to other sports where maybe the physical aspect is very important, still very important in motor racing, but it's not like a 100-meter sprint or tennis match. Here you still rely a lot on the machine. So to get older, normally it is a help in motorsport.
Yeah, I think so. So you are also different than many other drivers because you've done Indy 500, you've done Le Mans. Most of the drivers that I read about haven't had that sort of breadth of experience, different kinds of racing. Does that help you?
It does, it did, for sure. Trying different series and different cars obviously made me a more complete driver now. I learned a lot of different philosophies of racing, the endurance racing, the 24-hour Le Mans, the Indy 500, the oval racing, different techniques of how to drive racing cars. And I think when you put all together, you are a better driver, because you never know when you will use something that you learn in Dakar, which is a completely different driving technique than Formula One car, but maybe in a very slippery surface or in a wet Formula One race or whatever, maybe you memorize some of the things that you did in that moment that are still useful in Formula One.
So I was curious about whether or not all of these experiences have created a philosophy, a way that you approach a race. If someone said to you, how do you think about racing? What is your means, your philosophy, the way you think, and if you were to explain it to a group or to your team?
Sure. I think there are two big things on trying different categories. One was obviously being a more complete driver and try to get out of the comfort zone. When you are many years in Formula One, I think you are used to a very strict routine of how to drive those cars and how to manage your life. And then when you go out of that and you need to learn from zero, from scratch, I think you wake up some of your skills again, and you have to learn from nothing. So that's a very interesting thing to do in life from time to time.
Yeah, it's like we call that beginner's mind, which is the reconsideration, of what's going on again, right from scratch.
100%, and that I think it makes you, more alive, and it makes you happier. And then on the second is a pure ambitious project, to be the most or the complete driver in the world, the most complete driver in the world, that you can drive any racing car and you can compete with the best specialist on that series, and that's an appealing project, for any sportsman.
Well, I was wondering about that because, we all talk about this desire to win, and if obviously racing, you only have one person who comes in first every race, right?
Correct.
But what's interesting to me is that in the race itself, during the race, it may be possible for you to win, it may not be possible. I know that because I know that racing against you, not possible. But when you're in the race and things are not going very well, or it doesn't look like you're going to have an opportunity, what could change that outcome? And how do you get ready for that moment?
Well, anything can happen in motor racing or in sports in general. Any small detail can change the outcome of the race. And for us, for example, it can be a safety car. It can be an accident that resets everything in the race and you have another shot. You know, maybe in lap 40 or lap 45, when you didn't expect it, you're still there, you know, chasing for a higher position. And even if you cannot do that, you still have to be very strong mentally. You have to still positive because anything can happen. And sometimes, as you said, you can fight for wins, sometimes for podiums, and sometimes it's only position 6. But that 6, maybe it is very important at the end of the year because those little points will make a difference at the end of the year.
I was hoping you were going to say that because to me, all of those little points, we have a word for that in investing. It's called alpha.
Yep.
And you have to make all of these decisions in order to, you know, accumulate additional money when the market is doing different things. And I think of it the same way, you know.
I'm sure.
And that's why you have to stay.
There are some good weeks for markets that you
Right.
take the benefit. The
Right.
bad weeks, you're still happy with whatever you can take.
I'm curious about a few things. Like when you think about a new season, right, from the very beginning, and now you've had a new team, you know, occasionally. So when you approach a new season, does it feel all new or does it feel routine?
Half and a half. I think you still have the normal routine because if I go back, I started with 3 years old, my first go-kart race. So I've been doing 37 years just driving and
But no
sitting
one was
behind a
paying
wheel.
you when you were 3 or 4 or 5.
Or 16 or 17 or 20.
Right.
So it was a long wait. But yeah, I've been doing this all my life. So in a way, it feels like a normal routine to start a new campaign, a new season. But when there is a change of regulations or when there is a change of team or structure or whatever, for sure you feel, you know, a little more excitement.
I was reading all of the different changes that Formula One made, and it's like a whole encyclopedia of things that change. I was shocked that there were so many things. Why did they make so many changes? Is it to make the race more competitive? What is the motivation and how do you respond to that?
I think they try to make the sport a little bit more competitive and closer between each other. So the teams, they have less freedom to design new parts and new things that can make the difference in terms of performance. So being more together, maybe the driver has a little bit more input. And yeah, I think from time to time also the sport tried to make the cars a little bit slower because the engineers and the designers, they are way too clever and they make the cars always faster and faster. You start breaking some of the lap record in some of the circuits, and there is always a concern in terms of safety when you are going too fast. So every 5 or 6 years, they try to make the cars 2 or 3 seconds slower, and then they let the engineers to go back to that performance.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I look at it and I thought what they're trying to do is to make it more about the driver at the end. In
a
some
way,
ways.
yes. Yeah.
Right, by making it more even if they can. So, you know, one of the things I noticed is that you travel all around the world all the time. And the world is constantly changing, right?
Yep.
And you meet all of these different people, right? Your team is made up of all different nationalities, right?
Correct.
I'm curious, like, as to how you see the world now in 2022. Pretty complicated place, just finished COVID, serious stuff going on in Europe. You know, and you're out there, you know, performing, but you're talking to people. How does it feel? Like, what's going through your mind?
It is a different world, for sure. I think until 2018 or 2019, before COVID, I think we were, I thought that we were in a stable environment, more or less. And then after COVID, obviously, 2020, 2021, it was weird, you know, traveling and a lot of restrictions and a lot of, precautions for everybody. And now that COVID is still, you know, there, but not that predominant, people is not the same as 2019. There are more concerns. I don't think that, you know, it will take a little bit of time. So you try to adapt, but there are new possibilities. You know, you have to see those.
So I understand that you're UNICEF ambassador. That's a big deal, and it feels like a very big deal right now. You know.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to become a UNICEF ambassador, and how are you engaged with them?
Yeah, I have that possibility in 2005, I think. So it's 17 years now that we collaborate together, and I think we see in the world every day there are new needs. You know, even if you think that at one point the world needs something in Africa to help, you know, some people there, you will see that in Ukraine it goes the problem. Then in other countries it's a never-end story at the moment. So, you know, they are doing a good job on that, and we try to collaborate as much as we can. Obviously, because I'm traveling around the world, there are always opportunities. When I race in India, we try to make a few things there. When I go to Brazil, there are a lot of the favelas and some kids that they need some help there. So we are constantly in search of how to help.
Yeah, I feel that, one of the great things about being a sports hero, if you don't mind my calling you that, is your ability to inspire other people, to make them feel like they can do something with their lives so that their lives can be better. And I guess that's probably rewarding.
Sure, it's very rewarding because I had this luxury and this lack of dedicate my life to what I love to do, car racing, and have this opportunity. And the sport gave me so much, in my life that it's amazing to have the possibility to give something back to the people,
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, right? Your family was not a wealthy family, right? Your parents sacrificed to give you the opportunity to do it.
Yes.
How do you feel about your family and their inspiration now that you're sort of, older?
Well, obviously, at that time, it was just a hobby for my father, to put the kid on a go-kart. But yeah, they are very humble family, and they dedicate all the resources that they could, to start my career. And then I had always, the right people, and I was taking the opportunities that they were giving to me. But now they still live in the same way, in the same place, in the same city.
But I heard that you bought them a car, or you bought us several cars. Is that true?
Normally, my teams, they always offer me some cars, and because I cannot drive all of them, I pass some to
Yeah, that's
my
very
family.
important. I heard that you only drive one car at a time.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad to hear that.
I need to keep learning about driving too.
So this year, when you think about the races that are coming up, right? I mean, you told me you had some favorites. You like Monaco,
Yeah.
right? You were talking about Vegas being added to the circuit. What makes one race better than another or more interesting?
I think the atmosphere, the fans. Honestly, when we go to a new place, we see the excitement of the people. We see the welcoming in the airport, the hotels, the restaurants. Everything lives for that weekend and for that race. And we love that. We love that when we see the grandstands full and the passionate fans, and that makes a special weekend. Driving in different circuits, for us, is not a big deal, but the fans, they make all the difference.
Yeah. What I was watching for the preparation here in Miami, it's incredible, right? The entire buildup, the number of people that will actually be here is pretty extraordinary. But in America, I feel like they're still learning about racing. They're still like engaged with all of the things. Do you notice that too?
Yeah, we noticed that. I think Formula One is aware of that, but at the same time, I don't think that you need to know that much about Formula One or about the technology that we have in the car. You just need to enjoy the show, and that's part of the culture in America as well. That they like to enjoy time and to watch the race and have fun and see overtakings and crashes or whatever, but it's part of the show. I think in Europe sometimes we concentrate too much on the technology and all the details of the cars, and I don't think that my grandmother will love to have all that information. They just want to see the cars running, and I think in US now there is a good momentum, that we need to keep going.
Yeah, there's definitely a good momentum, and of course, having a show on Netflix, where people get to know the drivers.
Yes.
I mean, we love that. It's a big deal. So I'd love you to tell me who are some of your favorite, your sports heroes outside of racing, like people who you admire.
All the great athletes, for sure you admire them, and for me, when I was a kid, I love football. I'm a Real Madrid fan, so for sure all the Real Madrid players at that time, they were some kind of heroes. I like cycling as well, so Miguel Indurain, all that time in the Tour of France, they were some kind of heroes as well. Michael Jordan. All the biggest, they are always an inspiration when you are a kid and you love a sport.
That's great. So, you work with us at Citi Private Bank. You're a client, and we love you, like having you here. We just like, it's just you're part of our family now, right?
I love you too.
What I like about this is that all of our relationships that are great have that family feeling. It's beyond,
Exactly.
It's beyond racing, it's beyond investing. You actually just develop a relationship that turns out to be really big.
Yes.
Which I think is great. So I'm going to ask you one last question today. I would like you to give me some advice. What do you think I should be worried about in the future? What how would you suggest I think about investing the way you think about racing?
I don't know. That's a very good question.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about is that, just like technology is changing for you, technology is changing for me too.
Yeah.
One of the things we think about is if you're not investing in technology, you're not investing in the future.
Yeah, that's correct. But I think you have a much more difficult job than what I do. I think I drive cars as fast as I can, but it's more or less a stable environment. We always
you think your environment is stable?
Yes, we have always a circuit and a car and a driver and a team. But for you guys, there are things that I'm sure 10 years ago you thought about, this thing will be big in 10 years and it's not anymore, and things like that. So I think that's a very difficult part of your job.
I agree. I think that there's two parts to our job. One is we've got to think about what could happen, and just like you, we have to worry about the unexpected things that happen all of the time.
Exactly.
We've got to do that. So anyway, thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you. Thanks
and
to you.
really enjoyed it.
And good luck.
You too.